Hey guys, welcome to Bro Talk. Welcome to another episode in which we will be continuing throughout these other episodes on this book, The 48 Laws of Power. In this episode, we'll be talking about Law 7 and Law 8. Very interesting laws that we could all learn a lot from. So please come and join our conversation and don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment the video. All right. Listen, we're already in Law 7. How many more laws we have to go?
I think it's like 40 something or 50
About
something.
41 more to go. I think.
That's it. Nice.
Nice. But for this episode, right, we studied Law 7 and Law 8. Very interesting laws. A lot to learn from. And let's start with Law 7, right?
Okay, no problem.
Law 7 is get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit.
Okay.
And the judgment of that is use the wisdom, knowledge, and legwork of other people to further your own cause. Not only will such assistance save you valuable time and energy, it will give you a godlike aura of efficiency and speed. In the end, your helpers will be forgotten and you will be remembered. Never do yourself what others can do for you.
Okay.
I like this law a lot, actually. But
Really? Why?
it sounds very from a different perspective. It sounds very evil in a sense.
Immoral and evil?
In more as well, just because it's like you're trying to take away something from someone else, right? Whatever they were able to develop, whatever they were able to create, maybe they were the cause of this whole thing, or whatever you've put out, but you're taking the credit for it.
Yes.
And that's like that's like you taking advantage of somebody. Someone could be extremely naive, especially out in the real world, and not know how things actually operate. And someone evil or immoral that knows how the real world works or operates could take the naiveness of someone else and their creativeness, their invention, and use it for their own credit or for their own glory, right? And that's why this law, this chapter, whatever, could seem very evil. And as a matter of fact, they actually illustrate something like that in the first example with the transgression and the observance of the law. They talked about how actually they do a repetitive story, not exactly the same story, but the same people that we spoke about in previous laws, about which it was Thomas Edison and Nikola Tesla.
Yes.
And they basically talk about how Nikola Tesla was like a great inventor, and he was the one that invented the AC system, compared to Edison, who was the one that invented the DC system. The thing was that one of the reasons, even in grade school or when we grow up, that we know more the name Edison rather than we know the name Tesla is because Edison was able to commercialize his his inventions better, his fame better, and actually, as a matter of fact, ended up taking credit away from Tesla. I believe in the interpretation in page 58.
Yeah.
Talks about how Tesla was a bit naive towards these things. And that's why I mentioned that earlier, right? I gave that example of someone taking advantage of somebody, because it's kind of what happened here, where he showed his naiveness because he believed, it says the interpretation, science had nothing to do with politics and claimed not to care for fame and riches. He wanted to do everything on his own, but merely exhausted and impoverished himself in the process, right? While Edison, on the other hand, was just knew politics better, was just a better businessman. And I think the lesson that we learn from here, and is also stated here, is that the credit for an invention or creation is as important, if not more important, than the invention itself. And I actually searched this up. It's actually very true. Edison was able to commercialize better, I think Tesla, and correct me if I'm wrong, was did something wrong. I believe it's also mentioned in the story how he ended up like selling something, his royalties, or a part that he had. Uh,
Yes, on page 57,
57,
he
right? With the
yeah, this
Weinstein house, right?
correct, yes.
And okay, yeah. And for what I remember, he ended up uh giving up some of his royalties, which from what I remember reading, stated how by him doing that, it's like he gave himself over. And if he would have never done that and would have just continued to have, in a sense, let's just call it the same ambition or the same immoral strength that Edison had, he could have potentially been the richest person at the time.
Mhm.
So, listen, I don't know what you think of this. I think it's a very interesting way of going about things. There's also a reversal to this, and we'll get to that. Uh, but there's an evil side and an immoral side, in a sense, when it comes to taking credit for someone else's work. I mean, one example, and I'm sorry if I'm taking too long talking.
No, 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 don't
Um,
worry. I'm listening. Don't worry.
one example is I don't know if you remember. I mean, it's in real life. The movie it's about Facebook. I
Oh,
forget
the
the
social
movie.
network, the
The
social network.
the social network.
Mhm.
How you know he ended up like taking advantage of his friend that also played part into the invention
Facebook. Uh-huh.
of Facebook, or someone else took advantage and took credit for someone else, and then obviously that person ended up suing and stuff like that.
Mhm.
But this happens in real life. This happens in the real world of businesses or inventions, entrepreneurship. So yeah, you always gotta keep an eye for that. But at the same time, we can also see this as a reversal and be like, Edison was smart, and Edison to not only keep glory to himself, as we studied in a previous law,
Mhm.
how he didn't want to take uh, the Nobel Prize, I think it was. He didn't want to share with Tesla
Mhm.
to not only glorify himself but glorify Tesla. He also was able to commercialize things better, which made him nowadays much more of a known person and taking a lot of credit for stuff that maybe he didn't invent himself.
Mm.
What do you think?
So when I was reading this chapter, one of the things that came to my mind was,
Hmm.
again, putting aside the fact that I've mentioned this before, and I think you've agreed with me as well, that
Yeah,
potentially the author, the writer, again, I'm not sure, wrote it this specific way to be enticing, or
hundred
specifically to,
percent.
or specifically to those people who want power, who are just power hungry. But now, the question that came to my head, which I think is an interesting question to talk about, is is it immoral or evil, as you've said, right, to take credit for someone else's work, or can we say that is strategic leadership, right? Because at the end of the day, what this chapter is saying is, listen, don't do all the work. Which, by the way, I actually happen to agree with that part, which I can get to that later. He is saying, don't do the work. You don't have enough time. You don't have enough resources. You don't have enough money. Life is short. And if you want to be known, you want to get stuff done, you got to get other people to do things for you. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is for you to take credit. So the question I'm going to ask you, and then I could also talk about,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
it immoral to take credit for someone else's work, or could you just say, I'm just being a leader? This is part of being a leader, or the CEO or COO or whatever other big name we want to say. Well, what do you
I,
think?
I I agree with you when it comes to the side of time is limited, therefore you must delegate, right?
Correct. Yes.
When you're able to delegate, you're able to save time and work on stuff that could excel your career or
Yes.
whatever you're working on. I believe it becomes immoral. Hmm. It is strategic. I think because it could be strategic leadership if it
Hmm.
comes in a form of a team,
Hmm.
right?
Mhm.
and you and you don't and you don't forget others in a sense, because society will forget others. In a sense, people will focus more on the superstar, the famous person, and not the little people or the role players. And I'm obviously speaking in
Basketball terms.
in basketball or sports terms. People will forget about the role players that play a huge impact on winning,
Mhm.
play a huge impact on growth. Therefore, taking the credit doesn't necessarily mean that you're being immoral. It could be strategic leadership, as long as you don't forget what else it involves, right? Not that you always have to mention it again and again,
Mhm.
because then you can seem weak.
Mhm.
Uh, but I believe it becomes immoral, I guess, when it comes what your actions or intentions are towards that other person. But at the same time, we could argue it could be a competitive nature of things. Hmm.
No, no, I'm listening. It is definitely a tricky question.
Because it could
100%
be a
a trick
competitive
question.
nature of things, right?
Uh-huh.
Um, we both want to win, but one of us has to come on top,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
There's no 1A, 1B. There's first place, there's second place in a sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, hmm. I guess it would. I don't want to give the same answer I sometimes give, where it'd be like, oh, it goes case per case in a
Okay.
sense, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it can, uh,
No, it's definitely a little tricky.
but it
Uh,
is tricky. It is tricky because
yeah.
it
Mm-hmm.
reminded me of what Thomas Edison said on the bottom. Um,
On page 58.
on page 58, everyone steals in commerce and industry. I've stolen a lot myself, but I know how to steal, right? And he wasn't impacting Tesla's life in a sense where um affecting his family or doing something, I guess, what could be considered immoral. It was just like just trying to take away his fame in a sense, because he wanted to want to be recognized, not him.
I mean, at the end of the day, he didn't just take away his fame. He also took away a lot of investment opportunities. He took away
Money, yeah.
his livelihood. He died poor, right? So, he did affect him tremendously. So it was not a light thing what happened here. Uh, so what I would say to this question is I think there's definitely a middle ground, but there's also a difference between there's a difference between exploitation and delegation, the word you mentioned, right? Uh,
Hmm.
first of all, according to different group studies with about moral psychology or about group morality status, according to a lot of this type of literature that I've read, first of all, it's very important to realize that people value fairness and reciprocity, right? People value that. So yes, you can exploit people and if you exploit people and you don't give them credit, you steal the
Hmm.
credit, you are going to win in the short term. But in the long term, it's better if you, instead of stealing credit or not giving credit, it's better. And I found this great quote. It said, strategic leadership involves delegation with credit sharing, not credit taking. There's a difference, right? Um,
Yeah, okay. That's kind
so
of where my mind was at. Yeah.
then I found another one, and I found these like on Pinterest. And another one I found was like delegate, don't dominate, share credit, don't steal it. And then the last one is leadership without integrity is just manipulation dressed in a suit. So clearly, right? What happens a lot of the times, and I also understand it from a certain perspective, but it's also wrong, but I get it. So for example, a lot of the times people will steal credit. People can justify this immoral behavior, or well, not quote unquote, but this immoral behavior or evil, as you said, right? Because they'll say, hey, but I was the leader. I knew how to sell it better. I knew how to present it better, right? I took charge. I put everyone together, so it's fine if I take all the credit. And yes, if you're the leader or the CEO, you do have a lot more responsibilities, right? Uh, but I think
But you're also allowed to take the credit too,
you
because I feel
are,
like because you take most of the risk.
yes, that is true. Yes, but it's better if you just share the credit a little bit. Now, when
No,
I
of
mean
course, yes.
when I mean
Sorry.
share the credit, it doesn't mean, as you said, mention them every single time, right? Um,
In key moments.
or just a key moment, right? Where it's like it's like, listen, guys, I'm very excited to bring this product. I've worked very hard on it. I did this, but you know something, I also want to give thanks to my special team of engineers, or to Pepito, or to Aaron Vera. He was there for me. And guess what? Just that alone, you are giving credit. And you are seen as a humble person, right? If that's what you're really trying to portray or not, whatever, that's
Fake
beside the case.
humility.
But maybe, listen, for some people it works, right? But you're
Uh,
showing humility. You're showing like, oh, he didn't just take all the credit. But what I think the chapter is really trying to say is that, and I think they said it. The chapter's kind of giving both vibes, like the immoral one, but also like the practical one, right? It's the
okay.
one on page 59.
Hmm.
Um, and I think you kind of said it, the last paragraph where it says, "This is the essence of the law. Learn to get others to do the work for you while you take the credit, and you appear to be of a godlike strength and power." I think that that's a little exaggeration, but if you think if you think it important to do all the work yourself, you will never get far, and you will suffer the fate of the Balboas and Teslas of the world. Because,
Right.
right, so like when I read this,
Hmm.
it made me also think of Steve Jobs, which I'll get to him in a moment, but it also kind of made me realize like it's better to be the visionary, right? It's better to be the visionary who sees everything. You just hire the right people. And it even mentions like Edison. It says that Robert Greene wrote, Edison wasn't even an inventor really, or like he wasn't even that smart. He was just a great marketer, a great business guy, and he just knew that world better. So he was able to outsmart, like for example, Tesla. He was able to screw him over so many times, but he gets all the credit because one of the important things is whoever gets the name or the credit for the invention, right? Uh, 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 for example, it's like a movie. I remember one time I heard Quentin Tarantino. They interviewed him, and if you look at Tarantino's background, I don't know if you know this, he really is. I mean, now he's famous and smart and whatever. But if you look at his actual background, he was a
Hmm.
nobody. He was a nobody. He didn't go
Right.
to college. He dropped out of high school early. He worked at a video store. He failed for many years, and then he
That's how we
became
all start.
correct. I mean, I didn't work at a video store, but
But I know. I
uh,
mean, we all start as nobodies in a sense.
correct. But like, but then they interviewed him and they asked him,
Okay.
what is the most important job on a movie set? And he said, the most important job is the director, right? Why? Because the director is the visionary. He knows how the story's going. He sees everything. He says, your job as the director. He says, my job as the movie director. He's like, my job is not to know the costumes or the light or the lights or the best cameras, the best angles. He's like, that's not your job. You hire the best people to do that. So your dream comes alive, right?
Mm,
So that applies here. So when I read this chapter, I'm like, this is really saying if you again, this might not apply to everybody, but if you're trying to get the better job, you're trying to write more books, right? Be known in a certain field, maybe something you could do is hire people to help you. Again, it also depends on your budget, but like you get people who are the best at that because you cannot be good at everything. You just can't. You're gonna burn out like crazy, right?
yeah.
Get that person or those people to help you so you can succeed because you're hiring these people to help you, right? If they wanted to be you, they would be doing what you're doing, right? And I remember I learned this from there was a book. I think you bought me the book called Tools of Titans. You bought
Hmm.
me this book for my birthday, I think last year, 2 years ago. And in the book Tools of Titans, I forgot who said the advice, but they said if you're trying to succeed in a short amount of time, hire even if it's for 1 hour, hire the best person in that field. Maybe it's expensive. Maybe they're worth $400 an hour, but it's better to spend $400 an hour and you save years of time, years of experience, and you get there quicker instead of all the trial and error, the time, the burnouts, the money, the energy. So when I read this book, I think of the same thing. Of course, you can also do this in a very immoral way, but I think
Of course, yeah.
if you have this mentality, okay, I want to get here. Let me get the best people to help me out. I have a team with me and I can get there. Like the best YouTubers. You think they're editing, they're doing all the setup, the hashtags, the descriptions. You think they're doing all of that, the best YouTubers in the world? No. They have a team to help them do that who are the best at that. They're the best at the talking or doing the content. Then you
Yeah.
hire the best people to help you to do the rest. So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. No, it makes a lot of sense. I guess it depends. I guess the role you play. If you're playing the role as a visionary, you're playing the role as a director, or you are the main character, then you have to excel and work on the things that keep you the main character.
Yes.
Or while any add-ons, any extra stuff, instead of tiring yourself out and worrying about what's the best like you said, angle for such thing or things for another, you let someone else who's more of an expert in that worry about that.
Correct. Yes.
Gotcha.
And when I was reading this, I also thought of Steve Jobs. Did you ever watch the movie that came out in 2015? I think it was 2015, called the Steve Jobs. Like the movie's actually called Steve Jobs, right?
I don't remember if I did or didn't, but I do remember that movie coming out.
It was Michael Fassbender's in the movie. It was written by Aaron Sorkin. If you get a chance, watch it. It's a phenomenal movie. I mean, they do portray Steve Jobs pretty bad in the movie, like he was an a-hole, he was mean, right? But now, if we think of Steve Jobs, right? The question, right? Do you know a lot about him, or not too much, or like his story, or
Oh,
kind of?
kind of, yeah.
So the question is, was Steve Jobs a genius, or was he wrong, immoral, or was he a genius? Because if you actually look at the story, not only in the movie, but they've written biographies about him, and I've
Hmm.
heard different interviews talking about him before he died, where it's like he wasn't the one that came up with the first Apple or Apple II computers. That was Steve Wozniak, who was his partner, right? He also wasn't the guy that came out with the iPad, with the iPhone, or the iPod. He didn't come up with those things. There was a team of engineers that did all that.
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
he was good at, and I wrote it down here, like what he was good at was like marketing, redefining, focusing the brand of Apple. That's what he was good at. And he sold this dream and he was amazing at it. But like he wasn't coding, he wasn't putting the parts inside the iPad. He didn't come up with any of it. He wasn't the one.
Yeah.
But yet when you think of Apple, you think of only him, right?
Yeah, you don't
So
think of anyone working behind the scenes.
nobody. You only think of
Hmm.
him because he was the main character. Quote unquote, right? He was the guy on camera, right? And I bet you, if for example, if I were to ask you, for example, let's say,
Okay.
give me, because you know this better than me, give me a game, ready? Whatever year you want to say, whatever, either in the playoffs or in the championships, where let's say, and let's use LeBron because I know he's your favorite player. Maybe when he was in the Heat, or when he was in it, or in different teams.
Hmm.
He is the star. Yes or no so far?
100%.
Okay,
He
so
is the GOAT.
okay, this is Adon's opinion.
Yeah.
All right. But actually, a lot of people say that. So okay. So let's take that. Ready?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
All right. He's the goat. Okay. Can you give me an example of a game where yes, without the other role players, they would not have won that game, even though he's the goat. But then when people think of that game, they think of him.
Oh yeah, I've
All right.
written
Give
that
me an
in.
example. Go.
Where okay, repeat the question.
All right. Give me
Where
an example. Uh-huh.
of a game, a series, where
Yeah.
they only
Yes.
think about him.
They only think about him. But if you actually examine the game, or you go back and you watch the game, it wasn't
Hmm.
because of him they won. He's just the star, so people just put two and two. They just connected.
Okay. There are many series when he was in Miami.
Okay.
against the Spurs. I believe I forget the game, but uh, people forget about Shane Battier.
Who's
People
that?
forget exactly. People forget about Shane Battier. People forget about Mike Miller. Those were two very key, like 3-point specialists that played with LeBron James during the Miami years.
Uh-huh.
Um, and I believe it was the 2013 run in where they excelled, or there were certain games where you know especially during the finals, that they went 6 for 6, 7 for 7, 6 for 7 in like 3-point shots, right?
Wow.
And but people don't think about these games. People think about LeBron dominating, and LeBron was dominating. Of course, you don't take that away, but without the help of those role players or consistently, shooting those shots, maybe LeBron doesn't win. I mean, just with any superstar.
Uh-huh.
Uh, you think about Game 6 against the Spurs in 2013, and Ray Allen made the game tying three in the corner. Um, but you know, and a lot of credit. They still give him a lot of credit, but like in overtime, LeBron during the game and in overtime, LeBron dominated.
Mm-hmm.
Right, so we think of mainly LeBron, and in Game 7 to finish out the series, LeBron dominated like crazy too. But that one key moment, in a sense, to extend the series and for Miami to win the championship, it came out of Ray Allen's three, right? Game time
Wow.
three. But there are many others during the Cavaliers and stuff like that, where role players uh, played a big part
Mm-hmm.
in championship wins. People don't think about. I think it was Game 6 or Game 7 when LeBron was in the Cavs. J.R. Smith also made a lot of threes that game, made a lot of crazy shots to keep them in the game,
Uh-huh.
right? But people don't remember these names, but those are role players. But obviously, all credit is usually given to the most famous guy.
Correct.
Sorry
And
to go
no, no,
so
no.
long.
That's great, and I hope the algorithm picks up when you talk about these ball players, and we get more views. um, but that's my point.
Yeah.
All the credit goes to the main guy. So Steve Jobs was the same thing. Now the question is then, was he immoral or was he a genius, right? And I think the answer is depends on how you look at it, right?
Well, yeah.
So
But
yeah,
sorry, no, finish your point, and I'll say what I want to say.
because like for example, if we're gonna look at Steve Jobs, for example, from a utilitarian perspective, where it's all about results oriented, right? You
Yeah,
could
yeah.
you could you could say, well, because how he made Apple so popular and how he rebranded it and refocused it and redefined it, this has affected billions of people around the world and how and technology has evolved. And look at how what he did, because from the utilitarian perspective, it's all about the results. You do what you got to do to do the best for the most people. But then if we look at from more of an ethical slash and I like this fancy word, deontological perspective, which is all about ethics
Oh,
and principle, right? Ooh, the big D word,
what?
deontological, which right, uh, right? Then from that perspective, then Steve Jobs is seen as immoral. He's seen as the bad guy because he didn't give credit. He stole credit. He
Mm.
he got others to do work for him, and then he took all the credit for himself. Where that perspective is all about following the rules and being ethical. So I think again, life is not really black and white. There's different perspectives on how to look at things. And again, I agree with this law, but I think, as I mentioned before, and I want to hear what you have to say on what I just said, you should definitely give credit. You don't have to give credit all the time, but it's better to credit share and not exploit and steal, because at the end of the day, then you are just manipulation with a suit, and that's not really strategic leadership. So yeah.
I mean, I agree, right? When it comes to part of always give credit when credit is due, right?
Yes.
I think that's part of what makes you a great leader,
Mm-hmm.
in a sense where you're able to take a step down or humble yourself in moments where you need to,
Mm-hmm.
in moments where you're able to recognize that, hey, I didn't get up here by myself. I had a helping hand, I had a team, and without this team, I wouldn't have this fame,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's what makes a great leader. That's how you delegate and avoid exploitation, right?
Yes.
But at the same time, there isn't a perfect world where you could give credit to everybody, to every single person, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult. You want to give it at least to the most important people that played the biggest impact in your life. And I agree also, and it depends how you see it or from what perspective. But at the same time, there are a lot of people that are okay with it. Meaning, a lot of people don't want to be in the bright shine lights of fame. A,
Correct.
a lot of people just want to have a much more calmer life, more private to themselves, and don't necessarily seek or have an ambition towards the glory or the riches that fame brings or can bring. And they're okay playing that second role, or they're okay. Like, for example, it wasn't Steve Jobs who, you know, put, the processor and the battery together and knew how to connect it and invented this and on how to make the phone. It was most likely the engineers and the people that worked behind the scenes. But maybe, obviously, I don't know, but maybe those people were okay with that. Maybe that's just the role they wanted to play. Um, they're okay with taking credit from Steve Jobs in 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 privacy, right? While out in the public, he was the one that received the glory.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, with all that fame and all that glory, it comes all that hate as well, right? All that negativity, all, you know, um, that all that criticism is what it comes with, right? If Apple comes out with something bad, it's Steve Jobs' fault. Steve Jobs didn't know what he was trying to invent in this iOS update. Um, the update sucked, or this new phone isn't much of a difference of the old phone. It's what is Steve Jobs doing? We're not thinking what is the engineer doing,
Correct.
right?
Yeah.
So with all the glory comes all the criticism as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's both sides to it. People that are okay with it, because not a lot of people are ready or want that criticism,
Mm-hmm.
because that also takes away from your private life. And depending on who you are, some people are not okay with that. So I think
Yeah.
it goes both ways. Like, if you want the glory, you have to accept what it comes with, and if you don't, then you have to accept that you probably won't get a credit.
Yeah. No, no, definitely. And I
And
think,
so, and
oh,
oh, and one more thing.
yeah.
And sometimes other people, you have to accept that other people have more talent in something than what you do,
Yes.
right? And it's like, okay, I might want to take the glory, but this person would be a better marketer than me. And we can make it much more further if I were to use him than to use myself. Maybe because of a character trait or a personality. Uh, and sometimes you either you have to take that step up or you got to take that step down, depending on what area of the world that you're in or that you have entered or who you're working with, depending who could do better at what.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know what you're gonna
No,
say.
no, no. I definitely agree with everything you're saying. And I think the last thing I would say before going to Law 8, because I
Yeah.
also like to bring this to like the average Joe, right? Or the average Karen, right? Uh, where it's like you're right. There's a lot of people who don't want that, right? But then let's
Hmm.
say you're not trying to go for that. How can you still use this law to your advantage, just as a regular Joe, as a regular person, right? And what I would say is, for example, I'll give you two quick examples. In my case, I could think, I'm writing, a series of children's books. My strong suit is the writing. I'm not really a drawer. I mean, I could doodle, but I can't really draw professionally. But I could think to myself, hey, no, if I'm gonna do this, I gotta do it all the way. I want to be authentic. I need to write and draw. So I'm gonna learn how to draw, then I'll draw. Why would I do that? It'll take me forever, or it'll take me many years, and I won't write anything or finish anything. No. So when I wrote the first book, I hired this amazing illustrator, Megan Frank, and she helped me make whatever I had in my mind and my doodles come to real life. So I'm using her. Now, of course, her name is also on the cover of the book, but when people love the book, they think of me. But I'm giving her credit by putting her name on the cover because that's where it
Of
should
course,
go.
that's where the credit goes.
That's where the credit goes. Or, like, let's say someone wants an awesome elite job offer that's going to pay them $150,000. I would tell them, listen, go hire an interview specialist, pay them $200 for a couple hours, and guess what? Your chances now of getting that job and being considered the best candidate for that next level job, you might beat everyone else. And when you get the job, let's say you get it, you're getting the credit. Like, wow, Adonis, wow, he knew exactly what to say, how to negotiate. He knew how to do all these things. This is what they're looking at. They're like, well, he's so confident. He knew everything. But in the back of your head, you are taking the credit because you used other people to get you there. But that's
Mhm.
fine. That's fine. Now, of course, in this case, you don't really have to give them credit, but even if you did lay later on a little bit, you are still getting the credit, not them. But by you saying it, you are bringing out good energy, but you're also not credit stealing. But again, anyone can use this law to their advantage. Anybody can.
Yeah, of course. And just to add on one final thing to your point
Mhm.
before we move on, not always saving the money and not spending it could be to your benefit. Meaning, if I have to spend a little bit more money on something and save time and have someone professional do it, but have less money in my pocket, that's more of a like a long-term investment where like I'm using someone else to do something, but I could come out higher using that money doing that than the person that does it himself, because that person maybe has more money in their pocket but less time,
Yeah.
because their time has now been used to try to excel in those areas that they don't want to spend money in, but they're going to have to master those areas and see how to get better while there's already someone else that knows how to do it. But I'm using my time wisely with the money that I have to, it's like a catalyst in a sense. You could use your money as a catalyst to save time,
What do you mean use your money as a catalyst?
because the person that doesn't want to spend their money
Uh-huh.
on someone else that could, do the job for them and they want to do it themselves,
Uh-huh.
it's going to take longer. A
Yeah.
catalyst is something that like pushes you higher faster. It's like
Yes, like an event that pushes you to do something. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
Um. So it could be an exponential growth in a
Mm.
sense, using money to help someone else do something for you than
Mhm.
to keep that money and do it yourself, because you'll be saving time. You get what I'm saying?
No, no, 100%, yes. And I hope everyone that's listening to this, do it. Do this law. It's not so hard to use this law. Go to Fiverr.com or so many websites that can help you do things. Just do it. That's it.
Just take advantage of people
And
as much as you can.
steal the credit. Don't worry.
Do and don't follow Nikola Tesla's
Yeah, he was a
example.
loser. No, I'm just
You
kidding.
want to follow Thomas Edison.
All right, now. All right, we're gonna go law 8. Can I read it?
Yeah, yeah, go for it.
All right, law 8. Make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. And then underneath that, it says,
Wow.
when you force the other person to act, you are the one in control. It is always better to make your opponent come to you, abandon his own plans in the process, lure him with fabulous gains, then attack. You hold the cards. And again, this doesn't just only apply to your opponent or to enemies. This can apply to dating,
Of course.
negotiations, interviews,
Yes.
all that
Yes.
stuff. Do you want to start saying something or should I start? You tell me.
You can start if you want. And I'll just chime
Okay.
in.
So, you know, after reading this law, what I really what came to my mind is why when you, I'm not saying you particular, but just like you or me, when you are put in a position, right, of why chasing puts a person in the position of weakness, right? That's an interesting question because
Hmm.
this whole thing is about the author's saying make people come to you and
Yes.
do whatever you got to do to make them come to you. So he's basically saying you don't go chase, don't go chasing, make them come to you, right? And he says use bait if necessary because he's saying at the end of the day you hold the cards, lure them in, however you got to lure them in. So the question, and I think this is and I think if people can understand this psychological principle, it can change tremendously on how you look at things, which is when you are the chaser, most of the time, it does put you in the position of weakness. And what happens is that it all has to do with social value, right?
Okay.
People subconsciously, right, they are assessing how much social value someone brings into their lives, right? So how much you bring into their life. So if you chase, it shows that you have fewer opportunities and you're needy and you're desperate. And when people sense that desperation, they're like, oh, he is so desperate, he's willing to do anything. Clearly, this is not the person I want. He's not confident, he's anxious, he's needy. I don't need this in my life. And then it turns people away, it turns them off. Now, another interesting reason I found when I was investigating is that also when you're always the chaser, you are resembling an anxious type of attachment, personality attachment, and it
Hmm.
seems that you're trying to fix a power imbalance, a power imbalance,
It's very
right?
powerful what you're saying.
And what and you see this a lot in dating, right? Where the guys chase. I mean, don't get me wrong, the chase, people like, for example, in the dating, the chase can be fun, but if the chase is too much, only one person doing it, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times the
And
person
you
can,
seem weak.
you seem weak and desperate, and it's like, oh, I'm better than you. And I'm not saying that's true, but this is what people feel. I'm better than you. I'm more good looking. I'm more valuable. That's why you're chasing me, right? So that's why, for example, women who are used to being chased, if you can make them feel that or make them feel some type of way where they have to chase you a little bit. And again, I'm not saying to go to extremes.
Give us some
Now,
game, Aldous.
yeah, yeah, turn around. I'm just kidding. Right, right. Then they feel like, oh, they feel excited. They have this dopamine rush.
Hmm.
So, and it's interesting because when you have to chase someone, right, and it's
Yes.
very hard for you to get something or buy something because something's limited edition, or the girl is too far away or the guy's too far away, what happens is that because now you're working so hard, your brain starts to increase the value of the thing or the person in your mind so you can justify it, which is fascinating. Your brain does this automatically, subconsciously. So after saying all this,
Yes.
what he's really saying is you got to be in that position. So I'm thinking, if in the negotiating table, interview and dating, there are different ways of doing this that you and I can talk about. Because that's what he's really saying. Don't be the one that's chasing. You're gonna look weak and desperate, and then you lost, and it's over for you. Make them chase you, either because you're valuable, because of a skill, right? Or maybe because of a mentality, because you're confident, you have something. You need to figure that out. So what do you think?
I mean, I agree to an extent, depending on the scenario, when it's okay to be the one going at chasing in a sense, and when is the right time to be chased in
Mhm.
a sense. I believe it depends the type of power you hold at the moment.
Correct. Yes.
Um, for example, in the book in page 64 in Keys to Power, it mentions the reason. Um, hold up.
64.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
the the it says the aggressive person is rarely in full control, right? Now that makes sense depending the amount of power you have. right? And I'll get to the example that I want to get to in a second. I just want to read one more thing.
Wait, page 64, 65?
64.
Okay.
If you go to the second paragraph, it says, in the realm of power, you must ask yourself, what is the point of chasing here and there, trying to solve problems and defeat my enemies? What's the point of doing that, right? If I never feel in control, why am I always having to react to events of instead of directing them? Well, the answer is simple. Your idea of power is wrong. You have mistaken aggressive action for effective action. And most often, the most effective action is to stay back, keep calm, and let others be frustrated by the traps you lay for them. Playing for long-term power rather than quick victory. Now, I feel like this applies when you have power. Meaning, I don't want to use a current example, but I have to use a current example that's happening nowadays. So and then maybe people can understand. When you have power, you could play like the long-term game. You can sit back and wait to be chased in a sense, and you can impose something. Meaning because it says make other people come to you, use bait as necessary. So, for example, our president with the whole terror situation, right? America has power. And we're going to exclude China because China is the exception right now and where they're still going back and forth. But every other country, after imposing certain tariffs, has come and chased back to America. Oh, we want to do this. We want to do that. Let's lower this. All the goods that and manufacturing that we provide in outside of the country, let's lower the tariffs, right? In a sense, you didn't necessarily have to be aggressive and show a threat to those countries, like militarily and something like that. It was more like, okay, if you're not going to do something, then we're just going to step back on helping you guys when it comes to this. And we're going to take away this because there's no need for us to do this. And immediately, you know, showing those slight movements, a lot of countries reacted and, came back in a sense to make new tariffs or new percentage tariffs with America because America is the one that holds the power in a sense, right? I don't know if you get the idea that what I'm saying, instead of showing aggressiveness, you show effective action, right?
But question, isn't the fact that, for example, if the president is saying, I'm going to take this away if you don't listen to me, or if you don't do this, I don't do that. Isn't that aggressive behavior? Yes, it's not violent or military, but isn't that still aggressive behavior? I'm just asking. I don't know.
Um, I don't. I don't necessarily think it's aggressive behavior. It's I don't get too much into politics.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
it's it's more showing like, listen, I think after a certain amount of time of helping you and in your economy, I think it's just fair now for us to get, some money back or throughout all those years that we've been able to help you.
Okay.
I think right now what he's doing with China is extremely aggressive.
Okay.
Because and China is showing the reversal of this law, which is aggressive with aggressiveness in a sense, right? Sometimes it is important, and I don't want to jump into that right now, but sometimes it is important to show the reversal. If the enemy is weak, then you must attack quick. You don't give them time to recover. But right now they're going tariff for tariff in a sense, right? Oh, you putting 100%, I'm putting 125%. Oh, really? I'm putting 150. So it's like, they're going like band for band in a sense, right? Oh, you could do this, I could do this better, right? That's aggressive behavior in a sense where like, or that's a higher elevated aggressive behavior, I guess, to get what you want. Now, I didn't want to get into the politics so much, but that was just an example of what I thought of how our current president has established some aggressive behavior,
Mm-hmm.
but in a way he hasn't. In effect, as a matter of fact, he's used more ineffective action to get what we need back.
Interesting. Okay. Okay. Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. So then I guess my next question for you would be so then okay, but so are you saying that in order for you to do this, you have to have power? But like let's say in an average situation, what if you don't have the power? Is it possible to flip the script? Or chances are if you don't have the power, you just don't have the power and this is gonna be very hard to do. Like what are your thoughts on that?
Uh, can you give me an example so I can understand a little bit what you're saying?
Mhm.
So
Like
you're
for
saying the average Joe.
like the average person, right? Like let's say it like because you're saying like this works really well if you have the power, right? If you have power and you can do effective action. But what if you don't have power in a specific scenario, in a situation, right, where you can use this, where you can make them chase you? So if you don't have the power, can you flip it and so then you can get the power? Or is it going to be much harder for you to do that? Like, let's say, for example, in an interview or negotiation, like, is that in your thoughts? Is that possible for you to get the power to your side?
I guess it depends what tactic you're going to use depending on the
Mm-hmm.
desperation of things, right? Because, like you
Mm-hmm.
said, when someone is chasing, it could
Mm-hmm.
seem as some type of desperation.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But in negotiations and stuff like that, there could be like a power imbalance. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes you could be on the high end or on the low end, and you need to know what strategy to use to be able to flip it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you don't show, any type of scaredness in a negotiation table. Either way, if you don't get this done, this can affect your company. But by using that tactic, the other person could feel like not necessarily intimidated, but me could be the person to chase you
Mm-hmm.
in a sense to make a deal.
So then you are saying that you can flip the script, like, or like where you can become the chasee and not the chaser. Like you could do that.
Oh yeah, of course. It just depends the circumstance that you're
Yeah.
in. And,
Mm-hmm.
in different cases, this applies all differently in different cases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's good to be the chaser, and sometimes it's not. It's like entering enemy territory in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like for example, it reminded me of in page 66. Um, they started talking about the Japanese and the Russians, and then eventually the Japanese crushed the Russians. But it was because, but regardless of their lack of experience, um, it talked about, and I'm not trying to jump from story to story. I just want to make a point.
Mm-hmm.
It talked about how the Japanese forced the Russians to operate in their territory.
Mm-hmm.
So this immediately, and correct me if I'm wrong, reminded me of the War of Vietnam. How
Mm-hmm.
America went into enemy territory,
True.
but we ended up losing a lot because we didn't know
What was there? Yeah.
what was there
Mm-hmm.
and how to operate in that territory. So we
Mm-hmm.
were the chasers in a sense, going into someone else's environment, but like they knew their territory and they knew how to hide, or
Mm-hmm.
they knew, the ups and downs of their landscape.
Mm-hmm.
They knew how to like overtake us in a
Mm-hmm.
sense, right? So that's why, depending on circumstances, you could be the chasee, you could be the chaser. It just, I guess, it depends which one is better.
Mm-hmm. Got you. Yeah, no, yeah, definitely America lost during the Vietnam War. We lost so
Yeah,
much unnecessarily people, sadly. But yeah, I think I would agree with something you said earlier. You can flip the script, the script, and for most of the time, it's better to be the one that's being chased. And I feel like
in
a lot
dating,
of
yes. Sorry.
In dating, yeah, 100%, 100%, yeah. I think a lot of times people go into certain scenarios thinking that they don't have leverage or power, like at a negotiation to get a raise, for example, or to get a job, right? No matter what kind of job, there's a job opening because they need someone to fulfill a role. They're willing to pay for it, so they need you. And I learned this years ago from different books that I was reading, and also I used to have like an interview specialist that I used to that he was like my mentor, and he always said you can flip the script. It's all about changing your mindset. Like, hey, you go there, and you could start interviewing them, right? Or you could start. So, for example, if someone needs a raise, let's say, right? Obviously, if you go in and you say, I need a raise because my kids is getting expensive, my mom needs treatment for the hospital, I just need more money. My like if you go with that with those words and that mentality, you are the chaser. You seem desperate. You're like, I need the raise, please,
100%.
please, please,
Like
please.
I need you in
I
a
need
sense.
you. And it's like, but when you approach, you shouldn't do that because also for a job, yeah, they might like you and all, but remember, you need to bring value, and that is how you're going to get more money. So instead of saying, I need a raise for those reasons I mentioned earlier, a better way, it's like at work, you have to show the boss or whoever's in charge how you are valuable and how you're bringing value either economically or idea wise or projects to the company. So maybe they got to see you take on visible projects, which basically means they need to see you take more responsibility. Maybe you
Yeah.
got to get more results, right? And then once you get to the negotiation table and you have a track record now, right? You can then say, listen, you can like subtly hint like, listen, there are other departments or other companies that have reached out to me about this position that I'm applying for, but you know something, I like working here, I like you guys, and I'm trying to focus on growing in a place where I'm mostly valued. You basically just told him like, listen,
Wow.
basically you told him like, listen, there's lots of people out there looking for me, I want to stay here, give me a reason to stay, I'm taking more responsibility, I'm bringing more clients, I'm bringing more money, whatever the case is. So now you just flipped it. Now they have to chase you now. You're using your bait that you're throwing at them is your skill set and your track record. And now they're going to have to negotiate with you because it's more expensive for them to find a completely new person. It's going to take a lot longer than to just keep you and give you more money, right? Uh,
100% agree. Yeah.
so that's like for a negotiation.
Because
And yeah,
now I'm just saying that involves more work.
for what?
So look for someone else.
Oh yeah, it's better for them to keep you because you know all the systems, you know how things work. A new person is going to take a long time to get a new person, all the interviews, all the waste, the time waste. Then you got to reteach them. Then you got to give them probation period, probably. There's like so much more. It's not worth it. You know what I mean?
No, I 100% agree. It reminded me of my job. How I kind of use this law
Tactic.
to my this tactic to my advantage. Um, briefly, I guess, in a sense, where it's like I kind of said I would
Uh,
love to continue working for this company and growing the company, and I think I'm capable of taking this position as I have been complying and fulfilling the responsibilities of this position without having the title. Uh, and they didn't have no one for the position at the moment, but at first they didn't want to give it to me because of X reasons. I was like, okay, no problem. Well, I think I'm going to take my services somewhere else,
mhm.
because I had actually gotten a job offer somewhere else, and it was a great pleasure working with you guys. Here's my 2 week notice, and that's putting someone in Spanish we call it entre la espada y la pared,
Uh-huh.
meaning putting someone between the wall and the sword in a sense of like,
Uh-huh.
damn, now I got to make a decision. I got no one else for this position. This person was fulfilling it without having the title. All we got to do is put them, in that position and pay them whatever is required, and we're set to go.
Mhm.
And looking for someone else at the moment wasn't ideal. Everything was being fast paced, right? So at,
Mhm.
at that time, I was using this law. I threw a bait. No problem. I'll,
Take care,
I'll,
guys.
I'll take my expertise somewhere else.
Oh wow.
Uh, but eventually, and they gave in and they ended up giving me the job. Obviously, I wanted the job too, and I needed it,
Mhm.
right? But I couldn't show any type of desperation. If you look into my life at the time, I was in debt. I had a kid incoming. You know, I was like, yo, I obviously at the interview, I was like, please give it to me. Like, I'm going through this and
Please,
that. Like,
please.
I'm dying.
Uh-huh.
But you can't show that type of weakness. The moment you show that type of weakness, it's like, no, I got you at the palm of my hand now, right?
Mm-hmm.
I control you now. But in
Mm-hmm.
a sense, I was like, no, it's okay. I'm gonna move on to something bigger and better. But thank
Mm-hmm.
you for the time that I had with you guys. But thank God it worked out in my favor.
Yeah.
Uh, but in other occasions, you can't use bait. You got to use the reversal of things. You have to be extremely aggressive and be like, no.
Wow, it's too aggressive. I don't. Too aggressive for me.
I
Uh-huh.
was about to be like, what if we ended the podcast like, bro? No, cut.
And what do you learn about the reversal about the law?
um, it has to do a lot with what you said earlier when it comes to the power imbalance.
Mm-hmm.
It depends the type of leverage you have at the moment and in the circumstance and who holds the higher power or not. Because in the reversal, it does mention, sometimes instead of making others come to you, you go to them, force the issue, take the lead. Fast attack can be an awesome weapon, for it forces the other person to react without the time to think or plan, right? Sometimes being quick, being fast is important, right? I've learned this in sports. I've learned this sometimes in when I would do boxing, right? Sometimes, you see your opponent weak, you got them on their heels, is not necessarily important to, obviously still think of what you're gonna do, but you don't want to give them time to recover. You gotta act quick, right? And one of the most important things in boxing, you can be as strong as possible, but what does your strength really value if you have no speed to your strength, right? That's why you don't see boxers as, big and chunky, because it kind of makes you slow.
Mm-hmm.
You see them more built, but more of a slim figure. Um, Maybe there's some exceptions like Mike Tyson, but it's extremely important to be fast, because sometimes being fast, you can be effective and you make your enemies respond on your terms.